Hi there, my name is Nathan, and this is Welcome to the Human Experience. And today I want to talk about becoming the statistic.
So I thought it was only right to start this episode about becoming a statistic with some statistics. And right here, the first chart I've got up is the average life expectancy for the population of different areas and countries. And as you can see, number one is Hong Kong, and that has an average of 85.5 years for their population. It's quite interesting that most of these countries are well-developed countries, which you would expect. And the biggest difference between number one, Hong Kong, and number 10, Spain, is about 2 years. Now I'm going to flick to the opposite. This is the top 10 worst averages of life expectancy for population. And as you can see, number one is Nigeria with 54 years. In the top 10, there's a bit of a difference, to be fair. The 10th worst is Burkina Faso with 61. From top, Hong Kong, to bottom, Nigeria, there is a difference of 31 years. So, like I say, sometimes your circumstance and your situation is not necessarily down to you.
Whatever country you live in right now, then there's a certain chance that you will be born into poverty. Depending on that country, there could be a higher or lesser chance. On the flip side, there's like a higher or lesser chance in your country of becoming rich or being born rich. And obviously that's more desirable. But what I was getting at is that, there's a certain chain of events that unfold, and they normally enable you to become that statistic, for better or for worse. And the way the human mind works is, even if we see a stat, because we have this inbuilt drive, which is fantastic, but it's also a bit delusional. It's like we don't believe that we will become that stat. So, if majority of people die of heart disease or of cancer, we're always thinking in the back of our minds, oh, it won't happen to me. If on the flip side, you're playing something like the lottery and the odds are millions and millions to one, you also think that, oh, this won't happen to me. So, the mind, the way it works and operates, sometimes it's like a protection, because it's like you just don't believe it until it happens. And maybe that kind of stops you on pondering on it and thinking about things too much. So I want to go through a few life scenarios these are kind of made up scenarios, but actual stories that I've heard of. I'm just laying it out as a kind of way that you can become a statistic. So, for this first story, think of yourself, you're this girl born in Malaysia, and, you're born, in a kind of middle-class family, and you go about school and you have your favorite sport that you do. Maybe you play some kind of women's football or something like that, or you're really good at playing chess, and you've got a good circle of friends, a nice family network, and things have gone really well at school, and you've got great exam results, and then you've gone on to college and you've got great A levels, and you're thinking of going uni, but you just want a bit of a break from education, so you've took a gap, and you always wanted to go to China, and you just happened to jump on this flight. And little did you know that this flight was never going to make it to its destination, and it was going to be seen as, an unfortunate event where the plane has, gone missing, and, you're making big headlines in the news. You amongst these other 200 odd people that have gone missing during that flight. And no one is ever going to see you again. That's one scenario. So you become this missing person / casualty of an air disaster. Another one could be that, you're born in France, and you're this, kid from like a kind of lower class family. But you've always, whenever there's kind of get-together and gatherings, you're always up for singing and dancing, and you're basically entertaining the family most of the time. And, this is recognized one day by one of your teachers at school, and they suggest that you go to this performing arts school, and you go there, you get in, and you graduate from there, and you kind of find your way in the music industry, and you go from being this kind of backup dancer, as they call it, Stormzy way, and then you get recognized for your talents. You've got a real knack for writing songs, and not only are you great at dancing, you're great at singing as well, but not in the more textbook style. You have your own kind of style, and you go on to become an artist in your own right. And you get all the accolades and all this kind of thing, but then you're not very good at picking relationships. So you have some really bad relationships, and they take you into a dark place. And once you break out of that relationship, you then find yourself in this rut that you can't get out of, and people notice this around you, but they're unable to help you. And one day your cleaner of this swanky penthouse that you've acquired through your career finds you, in the bathroom not breathing, and it turns out that you've died of an overdose. So that's another kind of scenario, that you can become a drug addict and die of an overdose, but also, against all odds, became famous, gained fortune and fame, and had a great career, and will be remembered by millions, if that's any consolation. So, that's to say that things don't always go to plan, but there's always statistics involved at some point, and you will end up on a spreadsheet, unfortunately, and you will be in a category either that you like, or in a category that you're less kind of happy about. But regardless of that fact, the fact of the matter is you are that number. And I know this is a very kind of black and white way of looking at life, but this is sometimes what is happening, and this is why we're sometimes in denial of the importance that our circumstances play in our life. And the way I want to reflect that back to us in a more kind of positive light is to say that what happens to you is sometimes beyond your control. It's just a chain of events, a chain of circumstances, like I say, the situation you were born in that leads you down this path. And in a lot of these examples, it was sometimes having a great life, but obviously ultimately it comes to an end, because what I realize is statistically, like, everyone who is born dies. So that's like 100% guarantee. And therefore that was always going to be the outcome in these stories. It was just, how was it going to happen? Under what circumstances? And, the fact of the matter is that because we know that in living our life, sometimes we should focus on what is important to us, regardless of the situation. So, whether you're born into a great situation or a not so great situation, focus on the important things in your life, because at the end of the day, they're the factors that you can change. The statistic that you become, you probably can't change always, but it's how you go about it. And there are people that break the mold and they do amazing things. A story I can think of off the top of my head was thinking of when I listened to the autobiography of Malcolm X. And what astounded me is that he went through a series of events that you would never ask for to become that figure, that icon that he was. And that was to be born into, a environment where racism was really high and really kind of direct. So, they believe his father was killed by this racist group in his town. And, that obviously had an impact on him. And then throughout his life, yes, he had that trauma to hold, and it must have been difficult for him. But he also, to me, feels like it used it as fuel in the fire of his dedication to what he later was going to go on and do. And that was to advocate, equal rights or even the fact that black people should stand up for themselves and be heard. So, what I feel is, in his life story, there's lots of events that happen. He goes to jail, he even, admits to the reasons for him going to jail were like doing these house burglaries and doing all kinds of things to get by, basically. But then that once he receives a letter from Elijah Muhammad, that changed his life because he made him feel important. And therefore he kind of then goes on to devote his life to the Nation of Islam. And again, all these events are unfolding and it's coming through the eyes of him and the thoughts of Malcolm X. But what I was thinking is, he can't really help where he was born. He can't help the time he was born. And then, yes, he can help the decisions he made, but his back was against the wall. Like, statistically, he was always going to go to jail as a black man. Statistically, whether he thinks that was some divine intervention or whatever, the Nation of Islam was an organization that was set up. And I would say predominantly their members were black. So he had a high chance of being part of that organization. It wasn't a guarantee, it wasn't a given, but with the kind of things that had happened in his life and his way of thinking and, feel that he wanted justice and that this society in America wasn't serving him and wasn't fair, then that was a natural kind of progression to go into a group like that. And he probably could have gone into a number of other groups. But it just happened to be that. And then later on, things transpired where he had fallings out with them. And then lo and behold, he's assassinated by the group, supposedly, that he was representing. So it's like, wow, what a story. What a life story. But again, statistically, he's a black man that was incarcerated, has committed crimes, has later come out, has been killed prematurely, and that is runs true of many black Americans, or a high percentage of black Americans, especially at that time, especially in that environment, and doing them things and voicing his opinion as such. So, that's just to say that it's a surprise to us as we hear it unfold, or as I, heard it unfold in this audiobook. But really, when you add it up and you take away the emotions and the personal connection and what it means to you or what it means to someone else, your life is just a chain of events that statistically probably would have happened. And if you are this anomaly, then that's what you are. You are this against all odds making it. So again, looking back to yourself, just say that some of these things are out of my control. A lot of these things are out of my control. I will become a statistic. But I can make certain choices in that. I can choose to live my life how I want to choose it. And one important factor for me, and this is a common thing that comes up, but is to be genuine, to be kind, to be authentic, to be loving, to be helpful, to give service to people, to appreciate, and all these kind of things, because they're things that no matter what your life story says, that's your character, yeah? And that holds true throughout time. So any of them circumstances could have happened, what I mentioned before, overdosing as a musician, a famous musician. But what were you like as a person? If you're a good person, that's probably why you're remembered and loved. In the case of dying, in the aircraft that fell out of the sky, then you're just a statistic of that kind of air incident. But who were you out of that 200 people that have died or gone missing? You know what I mean? Who were you? And regardless of the plane falling out of the sky, it can't take away who you are. So yeah, I've just been pondering on that. It's just something that I found quite fascinating, where I'm always kind of combining these kind of things of the human condition and this kind of other world of numbers and facts and science, and then you've got this spirituality as well, and they're all kind of merging together, because at the end of the day I feel like a lot of these things come into play, whether it's religion, whether it's beliefs, whether it's passions, whether it's being creative, to help us through this human experience. And I think, going back to having them good qualities, it's like if you can just go beyond your circumstance, beyond your situation, that is a major win. That is a major win, right? And you can be known as that bright person, that bit of light in the craziness that is life. So if you could leave a comment, I would love to hear some comments that kind of tell me what statistic you are or have become, and how it's either impacted you or how you've kind of overcome it. So one for me, to give an example, would be, I'm from a single parent background, and that was statistically going to go on with the circumstances around the time I was born, the parents I was born to, the situation at the time in society. That was a possibility, and it just so happened. So out of that, again, there's certain things that have happened to me and a certain status that I am at, which I would say is like kind of working class, that was always a given. But not to blow my own trumpet, but to just see it from a more kind of real position of, a lot of people would credit me with being like someone that is genuine, someone that is kind, someone that is willing to lend an ear, someone that would keep their word, someone that is trustworthy. And I have a good circle of friends and family. And I don't really have any bad energy or feelings towards other people. I can let things go. So that's my kind of thing that I would state. But I'd like to hear what things have come into your life and what kind of things you've overcome. So thanks for your time, and I'll see you next time on Welcome to the Human Experience.